Welcome to the Radical Hospitality Podcast, where we dive into the art and business of creating extraordinary hospitality experiences. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Callie Van Der Merwe, a visionary architect with a unique approach to shaping hospitality environments that both inspire and engage. In this episode, we explore three themes that will resonate with aspiring hotel developers and hospitality professionals. Design as an immersive experience. Callie discusses how design can shape not just the aesthetics, but it can influence guest behaviors and create emotional connection. We explore how thoughtful, immersive design can elevate hotel stays while turning these experiences into unforgettable and satisfaction for repeat businesses. We look at behavioral design and hospitality. Moving beyond sustainability, Callie introduces us to the concept of behavioral design, how spaces can be intentionally crafted to influence guest actions, whether it's encouraging social interactions or promoting relaxation. This approach, it offers a powerful tool for hospitality professionals aiming to create environments that enhance both the guest experience and business's outcome. So sit back, enjoy, listen to the episode. Hope you guys find something valuable.
I founded a company called Design Partnership, and it was rooted in the idea that we never produce in isolation. The best work's done with clients and good people. So it's a partnership, it's design, and so the origin was quite straight up. And then we grew that quite significantly, and it's the partners there are still going with the large offices. So coming here came to open another design partnership for the business. The issue was that we were quite isolated in our name. We were the only design partnership. Anybody that came along, we would send a lawyer's letter back in the day that came close to that soundbite and managed that to fend it off successfully. However, coming here, there were 5 or 6 versions of design partnership, like design global partnership, engineering design partnership, all kinds of design partnerships here. So we found that as a foreign new company, it was almost impossible to get through the clutter. SEO wouldn't work. And so the name COOP came from co-op, which was similar in its kind of intention, right? To co-op with people and clients. And it's always been the philosophy that we can get better work done in teams and people, and it's not top down, but you can get the most beautiful results by incorporating like really from the bottom up inside. And so that philosophy stayed. And so we had that as a problem. And then we also found that in opening Dubai, we had a similar issue that there were three or four similar sounding companies, and we needed things to be isolated. So it was really finding a soundbite that did not exist in this category. And co-op made sense, but then COOP with 3 O's made more sense. So just replacing the little dash in the middle. But I think COOP is a better way of putting it. I like that. So that's where it came from, and it's really that COOP doesn't exist anywhere in the world at this point anyway under this category of work, and so the SEO can find it a lot easier. It's a lot easier to kind of get through the clutter.
When I look at your website, which is phenomenal, by the way, you guys have some amazing work. Yeah, you're covering, seems like a broad area of service spectrum. Yeah. So you've got architecture, interior, procurement. Is all of that now in-house, or are you bringing in partnerships to create this
We're trying to, we're not coping with that at the moment so well, to be honest. So we have partnerships around the procurement. We actually, in the procurement is set up with an ex-countryman that has a phenomenal business called Fine Seat here in Sydney. He's been in the game for 22 years of furniture. He just at the right place, right time. He had a desire to expand in territories that he didn't service, and we had a desire to expand in territories that we don't service, and we found this kind of crossover in the middle of a procurement division that he now heads up. So he's part of global procurement, and we bring in, for example, we do a brand here. By American standards, it's small, but it's 240 stores, and we're sourcing out of Turkey and China, and he's managing that for us. He's bringing container loads, he's bringing another 4 containers. Now he signed a deal yesterday, and then he's got the warehouse facilities to store it all until we need to draw down for the sites. Because what's important, obviously, in this is highly competitive, the space, is that you do a few things that your competitors are not doing. And so part of that is to procure in a price point where the clients can find reward and return. Because if you set up for $1 million and you could sell it for 500, takes you need to sell a few coffees and steaks to make back that money. So what we try and do is to set up for as little as possible, but have the same quality of interior, and that then comes down to experience as well. And I think the
And
thing
this
that we've
procurement
been
is it kind of is the large base of it hospitality oriented, or is it across
the
all of your
largest
different?
the largest base is hospitality. It's the most difficult thing to run as well and make work. It's the most difficult thing to design because you're designing for temperament and personalities and subset audiences that have a connection to space that's different to retail. So it's less transient. Like in retail, your average visit may be 15 minutes. In hospitality, depending on the category, it's 45 to 1.5 hours. Your relationship with the space is far more intense. And because your relationship with the space is far more intense, you need to apply a lot more psychology. And I think that's where we've been able to differentiate as well. So we apply a thing called design for behavior, which we've been I think we've been almost fanatical about it, to the point where we would say no to projects if we see that the clients are not going to accommodate that method of thinking.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
to break that down for me, I've seen you kind of associated with this in a few places.
Mm,
What do you mean
mm.
by design for behavior? How are you
Yeah,
utilizing that?
yeah. Do you want the long version, the medium, or the shorts?
Hey, let's go medium.
Okay, medium.
It
So
definitely seems like an
when you
area of passion though, so I'd love to understand like how you're
yeah,
utilizing that
yeah,
in your
yeah.
design.
Okay. So when you go understand the way we evolved as a species, as Homo sapiens, we have very specific triggers, and the specific triggers are hard coded within us because we needed to survive in specific ways. So our sense of volume, space, proportion, color, texture, tonality, all of these things are actually hard coded. So if you look at something that you would, as an architect, understand a principal idea of proportion, the idea of 1:1.618, which is encoded within nature in everything. It's in trees and the way that the fractal branches branch out. It's the same as our arteries. It's the same proportion that exists in our face, in our hands, in our knuckles, and everything that we have proportionately exists proportionately in nature as well. Formation of flights and galaxy and shells and flowers and male female ratio of bees and so it's everywhere. So what we find is that we, for example, in terms of proportion, the space that I can put it in feet. I actually don't know how to put it in feet. I think almost three. Like say a 9 foot high ceiling would be 3 meters high, I think, more or less. If I got it times three, more or less, by width, 5 times 3, 15, by depth, 40. Is the perfect proportion that we find the most comfort, and we can have that comfort even if the space is empty. And if you look at light, because of the way that we only discovered controlled fire, not fire, but controlled fire that we cooked on and told stories around 50,000 years ago. But that's hard coded within us as well. But that's a very warm light. So you need to get the light like temperature right in a restaurant space as well, where it's a longer visit to 2700 kelvins, because that's the kind of light that triggers us to be the most sociable. There's a million other little things, like we can break it down into a thing like Dunbar's number, which is the ability of our social groups to be a certain size. So without going too far into it, but you looked at the neocortex of different of chimpanzees, I think were the closest, and then discovered that they had a certain social group, and then extrapolated to the size of ours and got to the number of 150. And then you can break it down into the parts in threes. Like, so the smallest is 5, which is our closest friends, 15 being a larger group that we can potentially hang out with on the weekend, and then 45 to 50 that it's a large party, and so it goes on and on and on. But it actually stops at 150. If we break it down into smallest components, then we also find with the speaking distance that we have as people that are comfortable, the biggest distance is 1.2 meters. And so therefore you find that people, if you break that all down, there's a reason why most restaurants are 4-seater tables, because we and it's actually the average booking, because stuff that we've looked at, is 3.7. So because that's a comfortable group to talk, it's a comfortable distance to talk. As soon as you go to 5, it breaks into 2 groups, and so it's not a very sociable group. So anyway, so we look at all those things that trigger and move, and the height of the light that it sits at, the height of the chair and table. And if it's a short visit, the chair goes a bit higher and the table goes a bit higher. And if you don't actually, because you work in 450 as a chair height, 750 as a bar counter height. So anyway, so we try and play in between those things sometimes. And also it makes a massive difference. I'll give you another one more example, because I can keep you busy for days on this because we just love it so much. So if you think about fast food versus fine dining, there's a saying that we use often with our clients, that the weight and texture of the chair informs the length of the stay. And if you think about fast food, it's a chair that you can probably pick up like this with, it's a very light chair. It's made out of plastic or aluminum, whereas a fine dining chair is a heavy chair that you can barely pick it up, but you can slide it in and out. It invites you to visit longer and sit longer, and so you do. The purpose of the light chair, it invites you for a quick bite, like say you have Five Guys big in the States, right? And all these, that's a good example because we also do Five Guys here. The chair needs to be of exact weight, and if you go in the middle with fast casual, you need to find a chair that's not too heavy and not too light, because it's a medium visit, it's a 25-minute visit. So we look at all those little levers that push our behavior. So maybe just one last one is that we feel more comfortable in spaces with curved corners as opposed to sharp. And those studies have been done over and over and over, where they actually found the University of Haifa in Israel. They set up one side of the gallery with art with sharp edges and one with art with round edges. And then they set up cameras, and the ones in the sharp edges, people behaved far less sociably. They didn't talk to others, or if they did, they were more aggressive in their nature. And the ones in the round edges, far more sociable, and they interacted. So architecture, design, space doesn't only affect how we feel, but also the way we treat others. So there are hundreds of these little levers that we just look at, and we try and push and pull each one for the audience that we are catering for, so that they are more sociable. If they are more sociable, they are more happy. If they're more happy, they eat more. If they eat more, they spend more. And they go back with a feeling of a great experience. So we say that design comes last, and in hospitality, food comes at the end. People put food at the beginning. And if you put food at the beginning and you don't do the rest of the levers, you can have two similar restaurants. The one put food up front, the other one put all these behavioral conditions up front. The second one will do infinitely better than the first one, just because we are social beings, right? As mammals. So.
You mentioned in the beginning that running the firm, that half the time you're doing psychology to keep everybody operating, and it really seems like the kind of the same passion of overlay in this behavioral study is what's driving your design. When you start to like brush on the surface of that, it seems like every area requires like another level of kind of looking a little bit deeper of what's really creating great human experiences in places. So I love that. Do you have a psychology background, or is this just an area that you guys have decided to kind of dive into as a firm, or as you personally?
Look, I mean, we've always had that as an kind of process within design partnership where I came from. They still have that to some extent. I maybe have gone into it a bit stronger and harder now, to the point where we're not finished with that yet, but we're almost at the end of a documentary called Designing for Dining, because it's quite a unique subset of design, which is a docu-film. I mean, it's a series of it, but this one is just on restaurants, space, because it's so unique. The next one we want to do in hotels. When I say we, actually, it was quite again, this kind of synchrodestiny. This one day sitting with a friend discussing the principles, and she's also a designer, Deborah De Jong, and she said, let's meet up with this film friend of mine, because I think the way you've explained it works in my mind now a lot better. Explain it to this guy as well. So we did, and it was half an hour, and he looked at us and he said, okay, we have to make a documentary. I've never heard anybody talk like this. I'm just going to do some research and I'll come back to you, but I think we have to do a documentary. And then he phoned 2 days later and said, look, I've looked everywhere, I can't find it, let's do it. And so we've been filming for 14 months, and we did it on the back of a project that we just completed. And it's a fantastic client that we have here, Bradley Michael. He has a passion for restaurants and behavior as well.
Yeah.
But when I sat with him and I said, look, we want to take this thing to its absolute zenith. Are you on board for us to film it from inception design to the end? And not only did he come on board to and agree, he also funded part of that. He said, "No, I love it so much." He actually funded part of it. So and I think he allowed a lot more of the process to happen because of the conditions. It's being filmed, he's part of it. And so now what we find with this one that we just finished, where we took more time, people were more conscious in their efforts in everything. This restaurant opened on a Monday. By the Friday, you couldn't get in. It is absolutely printing money. It is so full of people. People are taking photographs everywhere. They just absolutely love the experience. And the food is 99% the same food as he has in his 12 other restaurants by the same name. And with this one, we really turned up the volume on every single behavior trait that we knew we would have in that subset in the city of a businessman and families on weekends. And it's just flying. It is such a wonderful
What's
result.
interesting, like in the world that we're living in right now with social media and the amount of data that gets collected on our human behavior, and how that gets utilized to good or bad, like you're right, it's just a tool, and it can be used in
100%.
design, and you see that getting used in marketing, Facebook and Google and all the
Yeah,
rest, to be able to say,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
humans react this way, that we can get them to purchase more. And especially as AI comes in, it's kind of exasperating that.
Mm,
When I
mm.
love and what I trust in a little bit more in the world of architects and designers, is there seems to be like at least this underlying hope for good that we can create behavioral spaces. I heard you say create joy and a sense
Mm.
of warmth, and
Mm.
on the business aspect are able to encourage.
The reality is that you don't spawn new users. They come from somewhere. They're going somewhere. At the moment they are, or they were at another place. You just inviting them to have a better experience in your place. So if you can turn up those experience factors on everything, then you make for a far better environment for people to choose you over a competitor.
We're in the process of developing this boutique hotel. It's going to be like a 20-unit boutique hotel in Morrison, Colorado, next to Red Rocks, which is a big concert venue here in Colorado. What would you say if there was like three or four things, or where would you start to say, okay, let's create this user experience, but with what would you say to start to focus on and look at that would make a difference?
You need to, but I think where we start always, I mean, we try to understand the audience first, and the audience is all different. There's no blanket approach to everybody. So, and this chain we're doing, Coffee Club, we took 3 months to understand the audience, how old they were, their needs, their fears, their desires, all their quirks.
By interviewing them, or
Yes,
by how did you? Yeah.
Interviewing them. Yeah,
Okay.
interviewing them. That market is a 70-year-old male that comes from a home, and he has eyesight problems, and he has maybe mobility problems, and so we needed to frame that first and make that better, like not put the menus up at, they were sitting at 2.3 meters because they have bifocals. They can't see it, so they can't see it by putting in, they can't crane their necks. So, to understand their behavior, they also, the way that they sit in and out of a chair is different. They kind of push themselves out and they push themselves in. So, the chair edges needed to be round. There's no blanket answer. And yesterday we had a interview with the potential. We don't have the brand yet, but Wingstop, which is huge in the States, and
Yeah.
the coming year. And it's a hip hop culture, right? So we're
Right.
talking Gen Zs and Alpha coming in after that, and it's the polar opposite. You cannot get more opposite. So now it's to understand what that culture is like, where they go, what they do, what they listen to, their exact music. I was listening to the music this morning, and my daughter's 18 years old, so I get it to
Yeah.
an observer point of view. I can observe it. I'm not grounded in it. The youngest guy in my office is 28 or 9, far closer to it because they take public transport and understand it far more intuitively. I'm very removed. I can observe it. I can see the behavior, but it's not to get dirty in that and try and get a handle on what the levers are that'll move them. And there is this desire for authenticity in that space. The reality, if you unpack that authenticity, it is a nod to authenticity. It's not what's real, it's what seems real. As long as it seems more real, it is more desired. It doesn't have to be real. That's the truth behind it. It's to find what that little sweet
What do you
spot
mean
is.
by that?
Okay, best example is there's a beautiful book written called Places of the Heart. I forget the author. And he likens it to, he talks about authenticity and real. So he talks about, for example, museums, where a museum that has real fossilized bones, real, it exists, it's versus one that has absolutely realistic AR and VR and plastic reproductions of dinosaurs,
Yeah.
will do infinitely better because its interpretation of real, authentic is more desirable than the one that has the actual meaningful, authentic product, the real one, because the experience on this side is better. So that perception of authenticity is the one that we desire. And it filters up right through to us now as well. I'm not talking only Gen Z and a millennial. It's something it's pervasive across everything. You know, I think because of my generation, I still want to see, and I mean, I love going to museums, and I do find myself kind of really being mesmerized by something that is so old, but it's not something that's pervasive in a younger generation. It is only what that authenticity represents. It's not really real, if that makes any
Yeah,
sense.
no, that makes
It's
a
the
lot of sense.
it's the
Yeah.
representation of it.
Yeah.
So so you need to find that now in that space as well. How do you represent that so it's desirable? And these things are difficult to find, but if you spend enough time within if you get dirty enough in it and cover yourself with enough of that mud and drink that Kool-Aid enough, you find it. And you find it, and it's that really beautiful aha moment that okay, well, that makes sense. Okay, it was right in front of us. We didn't see it. I mean, it's a good example again. This coffee chain, we find the sweet spots in the 80s, in that the older generation identified that the kids there, it was familiar. We needed to appeal to a younger generation that we needed to get in, and that appeals to them as well. It's that analog state that they absolutely love, right? So we identified that as a kind of a bullseye for a marker for us to head towards, framed it in that way, and then found that it shot the lights out. So the return, every single store for small investments between $50,000 and $250,000, we're doing exceptionally better, like double digit better than prior, just because we had reframed the same narrative really, but it wasn't clear enough. People knew they were fun in the 80s, but they didn't shout it out. They had a thing on the wall that said EST 89, but it didn't live it. Now the space lives it. We have art that lives it. We have art that references roller skates and big hair and shoulder pads and sayings and graffiti and so there's just a better immersion in that, so that people, yes, I get it, this is my place. And it's also just getting the place to be brighter and lighter and friendly and happier and than it was before, because we came from a time, and I saw it actually in Dallas. I spent some time there. I mean, a lot of the food brands were, darker to, like, for example, it's one from here, Outback, like dark timber and Outback. We have 800 stores.
Outback,
in
the steakhouse. Yeah.
Yes.
Great. That's our
Yeah.
interpretation of the Aussie food.
Yeah. But I mean, I look at that. I mean, that for example could never work here. There's a picture of the Opera House, some kangaroos, Woolloomooroo. Like there's these things there, and you think, well, that can fly there, but you cannot do that here. Like, I mean, it's the cultures and the perceptions are just so different. So it's just a fine.
Do you guys have a good Texas barbecue joint over there and on your side in Sydney?
I don't think that we do. There's maybe a gap, the opportunity.
Yeah, you gotta import
there must be everything's here. Yeah. There must be. I just can't think of one right now. Anyway, so that's really, we don't have we have a universal approach to it, but not a universal answer. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I like that idea of it's authentic, but it's, at a perception of authenticity, and I see that
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you
yeah.
said with the Outback. It's, we might interpret that as authentic because we want to hop in and, feel like we're
Yeah,
in the in the Outback. But,
yeah.
if you get someone that like yourself that's really spent time there, like, maybe not quite. Yeah.
No, exactly. No, exactly. It is, and you have to, you have to sometimes tweak that. Look, this is the market that we thought we were going for, but this is not the market that has the depth of pocket or the frequency of visit profile, or those things need to be adjusted. So we sit very close to our clients when they do the strategy and the workshops around their brand. So I attended one yesterday. We were from 3 different countries. I sit inside the strategy to understand what they're thinking, and then I can also raise issues from a design point of view. Say, look, I get what you're saying, but from my experience doing this for 30 years, it's going to wash over everybody. They're not the guys. I want to say the brand, but they came up with a positioning, a brand promise, and I said, I've looked at your stores. I've looked at the people. They're not going to get it. I'm sorry. They simply will not get what you're saying. Come up with another one. And then they asked why, and I explained why. And you're absolutely right. That's true. Let's not even try that. We get it from the beginning. For example, this brand that I spoke about that we called. Can I say the brand's name that we just
Yeah.
meet and yeah? Can I say it? Any brand? Meat, so it's called a meat and wine, and this particular one's called Safari. They invite us to their what they call cook-off. So we sit there, we taste the food right in the beginning, and we understand why, and we're gonna get into the real nitty gritty of it all. They try different patty weighting, like a 80 gram, 100 gram, 120 gram. And then we listen why. Okay, stack it like this. The bun, maybe not that bun. It didn't feel when you put it in your hands, the texture. Look, we look at the bun, we quashed it, and it's look at the shape. That one kind of bounces back or whatever. So we get really and it's time for us, but it's incredible to get down into the real gears of it all, so that when you come over the top to fold it in a skin that needs to represent it all. It has all of those flavors in it. It's not always a direct thing, but you capture the spirit of it and the personality of it, and you capture the passion of it with like with these guys. They're truly passionate about it. There's a little story also with them. They have a lot of farms as well, and one of the farms right next door is a chocolate factory. These guys throw out tons and tons of wasted chocolates, and somebody got it on them. Had this idea, and I don't know enough about that, but obviously the marble score is important in meat because like the fat between the layers, and the higher marble scores are softer, tastier. And so they just experimented. What if we just fed them some chocolate? What will happen then? If you told me that, in the Sonata sell the chocolate fed beef, like and the marbles, whatever that. But if you told me that would make a difference, I must try the different tastes, I would probably not get it. But I do get the intention behind it, and the story behind it is quite nice. So, it kind of finds its way into how you think a bit more carefully about everything that you do inside the restaurant. You really take a bit more time because they've taken so much time in trying to create something that's got a beautiful story and it's unique, and it's a sommelier will say that a wine is from this region, is this year, da da da. The story is beautiful. I don't get it because I can't taste it. I just like a good Chardonnay or a good Sauv Blanc. Or you nevertheless get so engrossed in that story that you actually start expressing the space in a more impassioned way, if that makes any sense.
I was having this conversation with our team this morning, and we were just talking about like some tile in a bathroom. It's part of a larger project, and it's easy to brush over the small things to look at the bigger picture, and say, hey, we're working on this larger project, and this small thing can just be set aside. But I think really when you take the opposite approach, like the wine, or and you say, okay, how do we make this one thing beautiful and special and create that moment, then that begins to inform the rest of your design and your space, and that feeling when a person comes in and they touch and feel the texture. It doesn't have to be.
The thread counts are little things like that. You're aware of it. Smell. You're just
And you might
aware.
not be
Yeah.
able to put your finger on it, but like you said, you become
Yeah.
aware of the
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. 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 There's a beautiful book written, and I'm sure you've read it, Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yeah, it's one of
Have you read it? Yeah.
yeah, I have. I actually had my team read that this year.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, yeah. And just those little steps that you take that just makes people feel more significant, right? So if you look at those 6 pillars, Chloe Mendez was his first psychologist to take it from the Maslow's hierarchy in terms of what is important to us as people. And so I wrote an article actually on it that relates to hospitality. So, that if it just run through it quickly, like certainty, we do the same thing all the time because we want the same experience. We want that certainty. So we go to the same hotel, same restaurant, same whatever, same beach because we
Mhm.
want certainty. However, if we only had certainty, we'd get bored. We would implode. We're not built like that as humans. We also want the second thing is uncertainty because we want delight and surprise. So that thing that happens, like in that book, I love the opening salvo there of the hot dogs or somewhere in the book. I forget where just people wanted to New York, and I mean, that is the uncertainty. The people go there because they love the certainty of the quality of the experience that they would get in his place. But then the uncertainty, that thing that just happened there, or filling the place with beach sand or whatever. So that's the second one. But then the third one, which I think is so important, that goes with that, is a sense of significance. We all want to feel significance. And that's why in hospitality, if you make people feel significant by acknowledging them and just taking a bit of care, that's a massive weight of belonging, and that the second, third, fourth visit. And then the one that's more difficult is after that is love, right? How do you convey it without it being, how do you convey it in an authentic way? So, but that's by remembering the people's names. But that could be point of sale, or remembering a birthday. Again, that could only be point of sale. So it comes across as authentic. It's not really authentic, but it comes across and we experience that as authentic. Or having their favorite table, or saying that, we're getting fresh oysters in next week. I know your wife loves it. That could also just be in the back of the point of sale that they had it. So if you're aware of those things, that's significance and love that make people really feel like they belong, and that becomes a new home. And then, of course, we have growth, the menus having amazing foreign things, just not a lot because we want that certainty part again, but a few things that makes you, like you were saying, is there a good Texas restaurant here? Then the last thing is I love to share. And when we've had a great time and we loved what we were doing, the sharing, like giving somebody like a handsome tip, we built to share joy. And so if we've had a fantastic time, we love the experience, then our propensity to tip also increases. So if you just play to all those little, and they stitch into every single little thing, but you can have a phenomenal hospitality experience if without design, the truth be told, right? If somebody understands all of those things and drives every single one of those 6 things in the red in how they treat people, you can have a good product, not a great product, a good design, not a great design, a good location, not a great location, and you won't be able to accommodate all the people, right? But we also, it's
So what?
difficult to get all those
Yeah,
levers to work as well.
yeah, absolutely. One of the things I love about that book, and we've looked at it not so much from the management side or even the hospitality design side, but how do we make our clients feel when they're going through the process?
Exactly.
And
100%.
and that's something I think anybody who's running a service business or architecture business, like if you begin to treat your business like a hospitality business, we're all in that service business.
100%. Exactly. Yeah,
So
exactly right. You actually put it in a way that, yeah, almost when you said it now, the words that came is unreasonable design. What would that be?
yeah.
Yeah, what would that be? Yeah.
Well, Callie, this has been like a really great conversation and a good chance to just meet and get to know you. You get really such a pleasure, and I love the way that you think and how you're approaching your projects and design. I think this will be some things that I'll have to pull back to my team and do some behavioral research of how we implement. So I'm gonna sign it off. But thank you so much for hopping on the Radical Hospitality
Mm.
podcast and sharing your experience and wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. These things are always great because it does force you to think a bit on your feet. So I love the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.